Hey there, Paul David Thompson coming at you, talking to you about what wholesaling real estate is. What are the mechanics, what are the pitfalls, and what should you know before you start making offers? Okay, so let's first establish what wholesaling is. Wholesaling real estate, in its very basic form, is just going and tying up a property with a contract and then assigning your interest in that contract to somebody else for a fee. And we'll go through a specific example and kind of walk you through the steps. So first off, let's just imagine that you have found a property at 123 Main Street, and you found a seller who is willing to sell this property at a discount because they're motivated, they just want to move on with life, and they're willing to sell at a discount. And let's say you make an offer for $50,000 to make the numbers nice and round. And we believe that the property is worth $100,000 all fixed up. That's referred to as the ARV, after repair value. When you're doing real estate, you'll be thinking about that quite a bit, after repair value. So you make an offer for $50,000, a big discount, and we believe that the property needs, say, $15,000 of repairs because it's in distress, needs some work, paint and carpet, maybe a new bathroom. So what you do is you make an offer for 50, so your offer is 50, and the seller accepts. They say, yes, I will sell my house to you for $50,000. So you guys write up a purchase and sale contract. You have a piece of paper that has you as the buyer, you as the wholesaler, you give them your name, and the seller puts their name in the contract. That contract now is set to close in about 30 days, let's say. That contract has some value. You can take that value and shop that contract on the market and potentially find another buyer who would take that interest from you for a fee. And so what you do is you shop and you find an end buyer. And this end buyer finds out about this property, understands the situation that you're offering, and says, yes, I would like to buy that property for $55,000. So what that is what you've done is you've said, I will sell to you this contract for $50,000 for a $5,000 assignment fee. Assignment fee. And so this is where you make your money. You found a motivated seller that has a good deal, and you decided you didn't want to buy this property, and instead you marketed your contract to the market, and you found a buyer who has cash who can swoop in and buy this property, and you'll make an assignment fee. That's not a bad deal, and you can do that. And there are investors that do this at scale. They'll do 10, 20, maybe 30 properties a month in the big markets like Houston, and they make some good money. But there's some important details to think about when you're doing this. First off, is what you're doing here really not just matching up a seller and a buyer, and you're just kind of the go-between in the middle? And if you think about it, and you're real honest with yourself, that looks an awful lot like being a real estate agent. And in this case, you are not a licensed agent. You have not gone into a listing agreement with the seller. You're not representing each other. You want to act as a principal. And if you do this 1 or 2 times out of all the other deals that you do, that's probably fine. However, if you make it a habit, you make it a business of doing nothing but wholesaling, then you are at risk of being considered a licensed or an agent that is not licensed, an unlicensed person acting as an agent. And that can be a very steep penalty and not considered a good thing by the real estate commission of the state that you're in. So what are the tests that you should be doing to make sure that you're complying with your local state laws? Well, first off, learn what your local state laws are. And then here are some minor steps to do, important steps to do, to make sure that you're complying with state laws. So these are, I'm not an attorney, I don't represent any particular real estate commission. I'm an investor, and I've done deals that look like that a lot. But that's not all I do. I also buy, and I also flip, I also take title, and I do a lot of different kinds of deals. And sometimes I take a property and say, you know what, this is just better off for me to sell this to a friend of mine who I know wants this. That's not a bad deal, so long as I have intent. So number one is intent. These are like the four tests, the four keys, 4 tests to make sure that you're not acting as a agent accidentally. So number one, is your intent to buy that property? When you put a property under contract and your intent is to do nothing else but wholesale that property, you're on thin ice. Now, if you take that property and you get it under contract and you have very strong intent to buy that property, and maybe you just so happen to occasionally assign one out, that's not that big of a deal, I don't think, because your intent was to buy that property. Okay, number two, do you have the capacity to buy the property? Meaning, do you have the funds? Or, just as important, do you have access to the funds? Which is completely fine. If you have a financing set up with a private money lender or a hard money lender, and you borrow money from banks or from outside sources, and you consistently buy properties, that means that you have the capacity to buy it. You don't necessarily have to have an all-cash offer or an all-cash deal in your back pocket all the time. You don't have to have a bank of money when you're making offers. If you know that you can borrow the money from someplace else, which is what I do, I often use other people's money to buy properties, then you have the capacity to buy the property. Okay, third, do you have an inspection clause or clauses that you use as an escape valve? If you get this property under contract, and let's say you have a 30-day inspection window, and the closing day isn't 30 days away. Closing, 30 days to closing. The important detail there is if those two numbers are really close to each other and you can walk away from the transaction at any moment just because of a kind of a loophole, air quote loophole in the clause, like from a clause, then you are not necessarily behaving the way that the real estate commission in your state probably would like for you to behave. If you were ever to get called in front of the real estate commission, you brought that contract that said, I have a 30-day closing and a 30-day inspection window, there's not a place that I'd want to be. So what you might be better off doing is to shorten this, to make, say this would be a 20-day or 14 or 21, some inspection period that is less than the closing date. You want to demonstrate that after you do your inspection, then there is still closing time afterwards, that you are kind of locked into the contract. That's an important detail. That is not what a lot of real estate wholesaling gurus will teach you. They'll teach you to do exactly what I was talking about there, is to make your inspection clause your way out, your safety valve. And I have absolutely had contracts that have been written that way because that's the way I was taught as well. Be careful. You want to do good business and be profitable, but also behave ethically and morally, and make sure that you're not tying up properties from these sellers with no intent to actually close it. If you put a property under contract, make it a point to close on that contract unless there is meaningful differences from your inspection that you didn't expect. Okay, the last one is marketing. When you are marketing this, you want to be marketing the contract, not the property. And this is a per state thing. Some states are really strict about what they expect of you when you're marketing the contract, and other states are kind of looser on what the definition is. But the safest way that I know of is to say, I have a contract for sale, and just call it like that. And that contract is about this property. And then once somebody actually expresses interest, you can share with them the property details, because you're advertising the contract, not the property. That is a very important distinction, and you can see this all over the place on the internet where people are advertising properties, and they might put a little bitty thing at the bottom saying, oh, by the way, I have an inspection, or this is actually a wholesale deal. I would just call it out. If you're marketing the contract, market the contract. because that you are allowed to market a contract. However, if all you ever do is market contracts, I would be careful and make sure you understand the risks that you're facing in your state. This is Paul David Thompson. I want you to go out there and do business, but I want you to do it safely. I want you to do it the way that is appropriate. Wholesaling is a tool, not the only tool, to make money in real estate. I have a podcast called Ready Investor One, and I want to hear your comments below on how you're doing wholesaling. What questions do you have? Are you afraid that maybe you are not following each one of these, and which one would you like to know more about? Hey, if you enjoyed the video, make sure and give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you can watch future videos, and make sure and hit the notification button so you can get notified when new videos are posted. And right now, I have additional videos for you right here.